Did you see the Penn State thing this morning?
Yeah. No, we're live. No, I didn't. What's up?
They tweeted out something. A Penn State player has been in every Super Bowl, and in tiny little print, except for 5.
Okay. We've been in every Super Bowl except for 30.
Let's do the math in your head real
Yeah,
fast.
30 something. Yeah, we've talked about every Super Bowl on this show except for 30 something. So let's talk about this Super Bowl. It is Tampa Bay. It is Kansas City. It is the Audible. And I know who I want in my heart to win, Bloom, for multiple reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I know in my head, I don't like betting against Tom Brady. So there's a lot to get to on this. We'll pour over the injury report. We'll give our opinions, give our score predictions. Vegas is, 56 over under last I checked.
Mm-hmm.
So... will we get over that? Will we get excitement? All down in Tampa in this, weird year that wraps up with a Super Bowl that's going to be different. So let's jump into this thing, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. Here's how I have my thoughts on this organized season. Okay. Although we'll flow. Let's flow. First of all, this is a Super Bowl. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I'm pretty sure it is not the norm that we see a rematch in the Super Bowl from the regular season. I know that both of the Giants-Patriots Super Bowls were rematches to the greatest Super Bowls. But usually we don't have a game during that previous season to go back and see how these two teams match up. But we have one. Final score of that game was 27-24. Kansas City won. There's a way you could look at that game and say it wasn't that close. And there's a way you could look at that game and say Tampa should have won that game. It was in Tampa. So it's Kansas City's second trip to Tampa this year. Let's recap that game. All right. What happened in that game? Folks, probably the most amazing thing that you'll remember is what Tyreek Hill had 200 yards in the first quarter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's very similar to what happened to Buffalo in the AFC title game. I mean, you have to account for Tyreek Hill. I mean, I have to imagine that Tampa Bay, it makes sense, Cease, to actually be like that simplistic. Tyreek Hill's not going to beat us. If we lose the game, it's not going to be Tyreek Hill. And in fact, they did an okay job containing Tyreek Hill. The game was 17-0 at the end of the first quarter, right? Blowout. And remember, the Chiefs were also letting up in the second half of the year. They were fine winning by a score. But, they were living dangerously because this game tightened up at the end, and they easily could have lost this game. So they go up 17-0, and they have a chance to even expand that lead. And someone I know that you have fondness for, sees Jack Barrett. Jack Barrett makes a big sack strip in the red zone. Now we have a game. Gronk makes some big plays. And you have to see this in the Kansas City defense. There are weaknesses to attack. There is a soft underbelly. Gronkowski was attacking it. Brait had a few plays. Ronald Jones had some plays in that game. They go down the field. They make it 17-7. Then Mahomes drives Kansas City down the field again. They hold them to a field goal. When they get into the red zone, they clamp down. It's 20-7. And then you have Tampa come out in the second half. Gronkowski gets them down to about the 5, I think. Kansas City's defense holds 20-10, but it's still a game. Then you have Whitehead picks off Mahomes, overturned by Ndamukong Suh offsides. Eventually, you have a 27-10 lead for Kansas City. Brady throws an interception. Brady throws another interception. But Tampa Bay's defense holds. In the fourth quarter, Tampa goes down the field, and there's 2 touchdowns by Mike Evans. It's 27-24 with about 4 minutes left. Mm-hmm. It was a game. 17-0 first quarter, 27-10 in the second half. Tampa's knocking on the door. How does Kansas City close out the game? With Patrick Mahomes scrambling. Patrick Mahomes' mobility gets the key first downs, and then just like in the anything can happen game, past Tyreek Hill closes out the game. But it was there, even after Brady threw 2 interceptions, even after Tyreek Hill had 200 yards in the first quarter. It was there for Tampa. And they weren't able to seize it, in part because of Patrick Mahomes' ability to close out the game, in part because of Tom Brady's interceptions. Cease, how much do you take from that first matchup when you're analyzing this matchup?
I take it as kind of a template, right? But it's nothing that we can say this is going to happen exactly again. Because
Right.
I've heard people say that, like, well, it's going to be a low scoring game again, and this is going to happen again. And I'm like, no, you have to throw in something different. So, Bloom, I ask you, who is going to do something different in this game?
Right.
By the way, that different thing is running.
Yes.
Running the ball. Who is going to try to play the gamesmanship? Because there's part of the bravado of football that you could say they're going to go toe to toe and it's tit for tat and it's touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Or you could say part of our strategy, and this is for Kansas City side, Bloom, I think should happen, is like we're going to bang the hell out of that front seven so that they soften up, so that they get tired, because Casey's offensive line is a big problem for that front seven of Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and from here, Cease, and I think you're right to have an overarching question of which coaching staff is going to be more nimble, which coaching staff is going to be more responsive to a one-off game plan to win. And looking at just that question, the positive news here, if you're a Kansas City fan, is the way the offensive game plan changed against Buffalo was brilliant. I mean, Patrick Mahomes wasn't 100%. And yeah, the offensive line probably isn't going to allow him to just dance around and make plays, extended plays like he has. When you think of the nightmare facing Patrick Mahomes, it's like, oh my God, he's held the ball for 3 or 4 seconds, we're dead. Something terrible is going to happen. But Tampa Bay didn't allow Aaron Rodgers to do that, right? That's Aaron Rodgers, right? That's the nightmare about Aaron Rodgers too. We thought we were going to see Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But Tampa Bay has the athletes on the defensive line. Mentioned Shaq Barrett, JPP, Devin White, shot out of a cannon on his blitzes. But you have to think that the offensive coaches for Kansas City are going to anticipate this, and you're going to have quick passing again like we saw against Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes barely threw the ball downfield against Buffalo, and they boat raced him. They ran him out of the building, and it wasn't like Mahomes was doing the air show at all. On the Tampa side, here's your positive argument for Tampa side on being maybe not nimble, but having the right mentality for a game like the Super Bowl. You saw it against Green Bay. They are going to take risks, and even if Tom Brady has to nudge Arians and say, "Come on, man, I can make 4th and 3. Come on." You're going to have the no risk it, no biscuit philosophy in terms of taking shots downfield, in terms of going forward on 4th down, in terms of understanding that you don't beat Patrick Mahomes with field goals, So I think I trust the game plan more on the Kansas City side to be responsive, but I trust Tampa Bay to understand that you can't just go in and do what you've always done. And then how I start to organize my thoughts on this is, okay, let's talk about when Kansas City's offense is on the field. Because again, it's going to be a little different than it was because of Mahomes' mobility, because we saw Tampa Bay's defense. Well, that's the question, right? Did Tampa Bay's defense really checkmate Aaron Rodgers, or was it still there for Aaron Rodgers if he just had made 2 or 3 more plays in the red zone?
Or was it still there because Mike Evans kept letting passes bounce off his hands that were getting picked off? What about that? No Eric Fisher, dude.
Yep.
And is it Mike Remmers at left tackle?
Yep.
Okay, I want everyone to do this.
Super Bowl history.
Watch Super Bowl 50 and watch Von Miller. I mean, I give Mike Remmers credit for continuing his playing career, but Miller retired him that day.
Yeah.
Like and remember, Carolina's offense was killing everybody. They were 15-1. They were crushing everybody. I can't remember who they ran through on the NFC side, Bloom, but they beat everybody by like 30. And then they met the Broncos, and Mike Remmers at right tackle then was just absolutely humiliated and embarrassed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had better have a plan over there on that left side, because they'll just keep bringing it.
Yeah.
They'll keep throwing pass rushers at you, and they can get to Mahomes without blitzing, even if Fisher was healthy. And that's the key against Mahomes. If you blitz Mahomes, he'll kill you. If you can get pressure with 4, then that's when you could get him. And the athleticism of Devin White behind those guys, this one's going to be tough, man.
It is going to be tough. And I want to call out Stephen Ruiz and Charles McDonald.
Charles McDonald's work is amazing.
Oh, peerless, really, and they're doing a tremendous job previewing this game, just letting you know the tendencies of teams, how they attack, how their personnel sets, formations,
play diagrams, probabilities, like all sorts of things.
I mean, it's just like Matt Waldman's work. Like, just read it and you'll learn about the Super Bowl and the matchup, but you'll just get smarter about football. And Stephen Rubiz's work is also excellent too. But one of the things they pointed out was after, or perhaps because of this game, Cease, or maybe even during this game, the old Tampa 2, right? They went back to more too high looks. And 17-0, and they only give up 10 points for the rest of the game. And I think there were a couple of turning points for Tampa in the season. The New Orleans game, I think this game woke them a little bit. The bye was also a turning point. So let's dig in a little bit more when Kansas City has the ball. Okay, offensive line's a big issue. You just can't count on your offensive line to add value to plays. And again, I think that Bieniemy and Reed will be very responsive to this, and you'll have more quick passing. You may be some quick passing. Now, this is what's going to be interesting. Why even bother running on Tampa? Really? Sue and Vea. Why would you even bother? And Kansas City is willing to embrace that anyway, even when they're not playing teams like Tampa Bay.
Right, which is in fact, Bloom. While we can debate this, I would say that's why you do it.
Right.
That's why you do it, and you do it with Darrell Williams. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is fantastic and big play, blah blah blah. But you start getting motion, you start getting option RPO football. You make that line move, even if let's say Darrell Williams is averaging 3 yards a carry, right? And he's just plugging it up in there, and there's not much room because it's the front seven of Tampa Bay. There's not going to be much room. It's about the fourth quarter. And as we saw with this Chiefs teams last year, I mean, turn it on to the fourth quarter and see what you can do. So, why run against Tampa? Because maybe that's your best way to win, even though it's not going to be that successful.
Well, or at least you make them honor the run, and how you do that. So what do we have here, right? You mentioned RPOs. I think that's going to be important. I think it's going to be important. So it's going to be quick passing. And I would expect Tampa to coach guys like JPP and Barrett to understand the set on these weak-ass offensive tackles to know when it's going to be a quick pass. This is like football 101 kind of stuff where a good defensive end, a good defensive lineman can just see by how an offensive lineman is setting up whether it's going to be a quick pass, whether it's going to be like a 5 or 7 step drop or what have you, and it's going to be very important to disrupt those passing lanes because if they just pin their ears back and come after Mahomes, then all that quick passing is going to work. If they just pin their ears back and come after Mahomes, then your run pass options are going to work. So discipline is going to be important for this defensive line, but it's a very, very talented defensive line. This is going to football 101 sees tackling. My God, the Buffalo Bills tackling in the AFC title game was atrocious. It was like Pop Warner football. I don't think that's going to be necessarily a problem. Remember, Tampa has some tenacious guys. And let's talk about Jordan Whitehead's a little banged up here. I think he's going to play. Antoine Winfield's going to play. So those safeties are going to be important. The tackling on Tyreek Hill is going to be important. But the other thing is, and this is again where you have to trust Kansas City's offensive coaches to take advantage of this. Tampa's defense is aggressive. One might say over-aggressive. I think you're going to have perhaps some misdirection. I think that Patrick Mahomes can probably manipulate them with pump fakes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of moving pockets for Patrick Mahomes. What do you do when you have a poor offensive line that can maintain the pocket?
Move the pocket.
Just move the pocket.
Yep.
So I think that Todd Bowles is going to need to be ready in a way that, say, Sean McVay wasn't. To say, whatever we were prepared for, once we see what we're seeing, we have to be ready to adjust to that right now. And because I think that Kansas City is going to keep them off balance. They do have the athletes to do that. I do think you have to go in with this idea of 10 is not going to beat us today. When you see 10, you smother him. Even if maybe you take a personal
which means Kelsey will get his.
Exactly.
You have to choose who's going to get theirs, and it's less deadly for your team if it's Kelsey. As
Yes.
weird as that sounds, because the big stuff from Hill, that's momentum shifting. That's, deflating as a defense. You give a big 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. Yeah, let them chip away at you with Kelsey. And if that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, Kelsey's going to be a big. I mean, look, Joe Holka, love Joe Holka. Did a little hit with him, 15-minute hit yesterday, talking about MVP prop bets, these Super Bowl MVP prop bets.
Okay.
Right? It's all going to be Brady and Mahomes. If you're not going to bet on a quarterback, how about Travis Kelsey?
I'll throw 5 on that.
Yeah, right. I got 5 on it.
Uh-huh.
So a couple other things to touch on here while we're looking at when the Kansas City offense is on the field. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris is asking in the chat room, is he a bust? He's not a bust, but maybe he's not what we had hoped he would be in the pros, or he won't be everything we thought he was going to be. Real fascinating, too, by the way, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire backed up Darrell Williams, and then Darrell Williams was supposed to back up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think we're going to see Williams on the field more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the Super Bowl. LSU's all over this game. Louisiana's all over this game. See LSU, Devin White. Yep. Devin White. Did you know? I always like to pop these things on you during the show, Cease. Do you know what Devin White's true love is other than football?
No.
Horses.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was a big pre-draft thing. Yeah.
He loves his horses. Like, he's all about his horses. I think when he was LSU, he had 7 horses.
Wow.
And he had one, his standard bred Daisy May, that was like his beloved horse. And like riding his horses, and that's his thing, man. That's his thing. Devin White and L'Jarius Sneed, we'll talk about when we get to the Kansas City defense and the Tampa offense, are both from Webster Parish. If you look at a map of Louisiana, it's all the way up there in the corner, the northwest corner, closer to Shreveport. A rural parish. I mean, Devin White's into horses, I mean, can I spell it out for you?
You're right.
And they have 2 of the there's a really good piece that Jeff Duncan wrote on The Athletic about this. So 2 of the local heroes, they basically, like, the entire parish is just all about this Super Bowl. And they were already all about this first match between these teams because of the prominence of these players. It isn't often that a rural parish during the Super Bowl can have 2 players, not 2 insignificant players.
No.
2 key players here. Also got to mention, Cease, will Bell get a ring? Ring the bell. It's interesting that there's a storyline here about Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh and having the last laugh and things like that. I will say this, more players should do what Bell did. And if you have a chance to go to a team that's winning, because he talked about it during the week. He said, well, I could have went to Miami, and he would have probably become the immediate starter there. And running backs, I mean, dudes like to play football. I mean, football players like to play football.
Right.
And he knew that he came to Kansas City. He basically revealed that he knew that his role was going to be pretty small in Kansas City. But he said he was sick of losing with the Jets. He was just sick of it. So don't say, that Le'Veon Bell is just all about the money or all about his stats and things like that. X factors, of course, we're going to talk about McCole Hardman. And it's going to be real interesting, Cease, because if they can take away Tyreek Hill, why was McCole Hardman even drafted by the Chiefs? Because
they thought they were going to lose Tyreek Hill.
Right. So doesn't it just make sense that now every game McCole Hardman does something to frustrate his teammates and coaches every single game? So if the Super Bowl spotlight shines on McCole Hardman at a big moment, does he show that he's just as dangerous as Tyreek Hill, or almost as dangerous, and is that guy you have to account for even when you have Hill clamp down? Or is it the ball clanks off his hands and, here comes Antoine Winfield, for a pick 6 or something like that? So he's going to be a player I think we have a lot of attention on. Intrigue, so much intrigue here. And what's great, Cecil, as we talked about, is you have coaches, you have players that are going to be aggressive and are going to take this to the level that a Super Bowl is deserving of.
Yeah, Andrew Frost here in the chat room says, does Sammy Watkins play a surprise role?
I don't think. I mean, he has. At least last year, there was like that first week that you said, oh, man, Sammy Watkins is back against Jacksonville week 1.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that from him this year. I don't know. I'm not seeing it.
Hey, you took the pay cut, so you get what you pay for.
Still
with Sammy. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. All right. In this contest, in this game, the legends, the urban legends, because I don't know if it was ever deemed true, right, Bloom? Yeah. Pat Shermer says it's a false narrative, but you have Oh God, I hate Pat Shermer. I dislike his ways. Let's say that. My grandma would always say, "Don't say you hate anybody. You just dislike their ways."
Yeah.
Okay, I dislike Pat Shermer's ways. But the somebody was crying in Tampa's locker room, like with tears of joy, and Tom Brady went over to yell at him and be like, "We're not done yet."
Yeah.
After the NFC title game, like I don't know if that's true. It's a pretty damn good story.
Yeah.
But what's funny, and someone brought up in our chat room earlier, is like Brady's on the inexperienced side of things.
Right.
Because it's Kansas City trying to do something that is very difficult. And that's go back to back.
Yeah.
And then you have Brady, you have Bruce Arians. He probably won't play, but wouldn't it be funny if LaShawn McCoy like made a big play in the Super Bowl because he didn't play? I don't think he played in the playoffs at all last year for Kansas City, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a healthy scratch all last year in the playoffs. So like, okay, you have ways to kind of rub things in or emphasize it. Now, if Tampa wanted to, with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, there's the ground game. So, again, I talked to Marshall Faulk, guys, for like the 5th time in 2 shows that I brought that up. But we were discussing about, speaking of New Orleans Bloom, Marshall Faulk, we were talking about how the running backs nobody's talking about them. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones because everyone's talking about Tom Brady for good reason. We get that. But in terms of gamesmanship, again, Kansas City might try to do that, which they'll do it in different ways. As you mentioned, short passing can substitute a ground game. So that's how they'll run the ball like the Patriots used to run the ball, just throwing a bunch of short passes to Wes Welker. So the Tampa side, then, it's like you do have true power. You do have players that can wear you down.
Yeah.
And another LSU back in Leonard Fournette, because he was there before both Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams.
Yeah, LSU all over this game. See, so we can play a game. We can play a game here, a fun game, right? If you could know one stat from this game to determine who won the game, what would that one stat be?
Oh, geez. I mean, there's easy answers to be like turnovers, stuff like that. Like how many interceptions, how many sacks.
Right. Because I was going to go ahead.
Yeah, it's something like that. Tell me the sack.
Tom Brady interceptions. Okay. Tom Brady's interceptions should have gotten Green Bay back into this Super Bowl this year.
Yes.
Tom Brady's interceptions were part of the reason that there wasn't enough time left for Tampa to catch up in the second half, fourth quarter of the first matchup. Tom Brady is erratic. As I said this, I think a few weeks ago, it isn't like Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger where you see, okay, he's just not the guy he used to be in terms of arm strength or in terms of his body's resilience and things like that. Like as the season goes on, they just wear down. Tom Brady hasn't worn down. Tom Brady still has all of his arm strength, arm talent, whatever. But he's erratic. He's much more erratic than he was at earlier points in his career, especially when it comes to downfield passing. And I think that is going to be one of the keys to this game. Tom Brady has to play mistake-free football for them to win this game. Tom Brady can't give Kansas City any gifts. Tom Brady has to hit those passes when they're there. That's going to be really important for this game. But see, part of that is, like you said, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. And this offensive line. It'll never happen. But if Tampa wins the Super Bowl, unless there's really one great performance individually, chances are the offensive line should be the MVPs, right? Mm-hmm. This offensive line, let's say some names, Cecil. Let's get some names on
Ryan Jensen represent from Fort Morgan, Colorado. Ladies.
Yeah, the ginger. Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet.
Dude, I remember when he was in the Senior Bowl, and you're like, Division III is crushing it at this game. So you loved his Alex Kappa, Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah, Tristan Wirfs, who they traded up one pick to make sure they got.
Yep.
Let Tristan. I mean, and this is one of those things where alters the course of things. That this happened to be one of the best offensive tackle classes that we've ever seen at the top of the draft, and Tristan Wirfs, who was the most impressive athlete of all, is the fourth one, and they give up a little bit of capital to get Tristan Wirfs. Alex Kappa won't be out there. Aaron Stinney actually has been doing a good job in his stead, and they're going to have to handle Frank Clark and Chris Jones. First and foremost in terms of pressure. Because at this point, Tom Brady is still one of those quarterbacks. You get him off his spot, it's probably not going to go well. The play's not going to go well. But if he's comfortable, which he has been, and should they be worried about Frank Clark and Chris Jones? Well, look who they've already faced. They already faced Montez Sweat and Chase Young. They already faced
the Smith brothers.
The Smith brothers. Yeah, and Rashawn Gary. You know, they already faced Cam Jordan and Trey Hendrickson and company, who ate their lunch once this year. So this offensive line has been instrumental to this team getting this far, because Tom Brady is not going to function well if he's under pressure. And then alternatively, this is also an offensive line, because if you say Ali Marpet, you go back to watching him, like, that's a mauler, man. That's a dude who's going to win in a phone booth. That's a dude that you want in a street fight.
Road grader.
And he is going to, and this is that winning in the trenches and wearing down, but also that sets up Ronald Jones, that sets up Leonard Fournette. Hopefully there's no drops for those guys. They're going to be an important part of the passing game. But this is also, even without O.J. Howard, look at the depth of this passing game. The Steelers again, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, Scott Miller. Scott Miller had the biggest play in the NFC title game, in the passing game for this team. Cameron Brate. Don't forget Cameron Brate. Who's going to be roaming? It's all about Louisiana. It's all about LSU. It's always about New Orleans, too. Seventh Ward again, Leonard Fournette, and Tyrann Mathieu. Wow.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a defensive player on the Kansas City side that makes a run at the MVP, that's your guy. That's your guy. And he's the kind of player, see, I get chills when I think about this. He's the kind of player that can make it. I remember watching his tape at LSU, like scouting him before the draft. He's the kind of player that you can do everything right, and he still makes the play.
Right.
You know, like a Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers or someone like that, where you're like, well, how do we beat that? How do we top that? He's a big player. L'Jarius Sneed, Louisiana Tech, Kansas City gets a gift here. I mean, on paper, the measurables look like, how could a guy fall that far in the draft? He even broke his collarbone during the season, didn't slow him down at all. It comes back, impact player. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on Dirty Dan Sorensen. Yeah, we go back to...
Keep an eye on the personal foul flags.
Yeah, well, yep. Well, more importantly, see, it's like, here's a baseball reference, watch out. It's like a umpire strike zone. You know, see how they're calling it. Mm-hmm. How are they calling it? Because if they're calling it loose in the secondary, that could be good for Tampa. I mean, Tampa's got some grabby guys. Tampa's got some aggressive guys. But Dirty Dan could, over the middle, send some messages. And even though the NFC title game was, I think, in terms of an epic back and forth, gripping battle, that was the game of the playoffs. Really, Kansas City Cleveland was the game of the playoffs. I mean, Kansas City Cleveland was the game that I'll always remember from this playoff season. Yeah. And Dirty Dan with that play on Rashard Higgins, Colorado State. So, I mean, see, talking about all this, it strikes me that, wow, I mean, this is really like the epic scope of a Super Bowl. All of these players. If you were going to say, give me the list of players who could turn this game, it's like 30 players.
Right.
Right. The coaches have big personalities and presences. We didn't even mention that Tampa's playing at home the first time ever. Now, like
and
Charlie
not
Campbell.
Firing the cannons.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. See, let's have a little mini debate. So if you were like Goodell, and they said, do they get to fire the cannons during this game? What would you say?
No.
Yeah, because that's a little bit too much.
Supposed to be a neutral site.
Exactly. But I think the best advantage for Tampa in terms of playing at home is the rituals. It was really interesting, Cease. I saw that they said Bruce Arians was going to have a 30-minute break in the middle of practice. It was going to be practice, and then you sit for 30 minutes, and then you get back to practice. Why? Well, I think one of the things we underestimate is football is a very rhythmic game. It's a game with rituals. It's a game that, this is why when there were those coronavirus time slots, the games were choppy and weird. That's why Thursday Night Football was so weird for a while.
Look at how the Steelers were thrown off when they had to play on Wednesday when they were supposed to play on Thursday the previous week.
The routines are important, right? I mean, I thought that was so fascinating that Bruce Arians thought it was so important to understand that you're used to a 15-minute halftime. This is going to be a 30-minute halftime. I want to run you through, and they said that if the second half of the practice after the 30 minutes didn't go well, then he was going to do it again. We're going to do this again. You're going to get your body ready to sit for 30 minutes and turn it back on. Because speaking of New Orleans, we saw that in that Baltimore-San Francisco Super Bowl when the power went out.
The power went out, yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was a different game. New Orleans, power outages. I told you about the power outage right here when green sparks were falling on our street. Anyway, one of these times I should do a show like New Orleans stories. So the best thing for Tampa here is they're at home, right? Like they're going to wake up in their own beds on Super Bowl morning, right? You think anyone's going to pull the fire alarms? You think Brady learned that from Belichick? Pull the fire alarms in the hotel, Anyway, Red Auerbach. So there's, and the other X factor for Tampa is Tom Brady. I mean, he's like an invincibility cloak. We've got Tom Brady. We're in the Super Bowl, but we've got Tom Brady. Now, Brady, at least Eli Manning's on the other side, right? I mean, Brady's not invincible in the Super Bowl, but I feel like if any of these players, you talk about this idea, this story of somebody being emotional in the locker room. Well, you look to Tom Brady as a teammate if you feel overwhelmed or you feel the stage is too big. And you just know that dude knows what it takes to win in these moments. And you get in tune with his wavelength, And I think the team has done that in the playoffs. I think the team has absolutely done that, including, again, that moment in the NFC title game when Brady says, no, don't put the punt team back out there. Let's not be scared of what Aaron Rodgers could do if he gets to throw a Hail Mary. Let's think, well, what could we do if we make this first down? We can throw deep to Scott Miller and score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. So
Bruce Arians, all of the mindset of Tampa is changing. They're at home, which, it's an epic story. It's like Hieronymus Bosch. I'm making an art reference here for people who know the Hieronymus Bosch paintings. They're like these triptychs that have like heaven and hell and everything in between. That's a Super Bowl, baby.
What I love about this game, Bloom, is the stories of the players, and nothing against anybody that ever gets a Super Bowl, but the stories of the important players. Like it seems like all the important players have fascinating journeys to get to this point, and that's what makes it great. And now it's time to pick the game.
Yeah.
And as I said, my heart will be with Eric Bieniemy and with the Chiefs. But I'm not going against Brady. I'm not betting against Brady, dude. Love him, hate him, whatever. I'm just going to pick Tampa Bay, and I'll say it's going to be a little bit over the 56. So, give me like a 31-30, like something like that. Like super tight, super close. One Tyrann Mathieu play, one dropped pass from Mecole Hardman. Like, there's one play in here that's going to change the energy. So yeah, I'm going to officially pick Tampa, although in my heart I'll be rooting for Kansas City.
Luminary Matt Batanti is in the chat room right now.
My God, Matt Batanti is the best.
And he, of course, speaking of wavelengths, I think he and I are on the same wavelength here. And I busted out this jersey, and I'm not going to go into the story of the jersey, but true Audible diehards know the story behind this jersey.
Thank you. You saved me some pain there.
Yeah, well, I've been waiting, Cease. I've been waiting each round of the playoffs when we do our previews. I'm like, am I going to wear the Jamal Charles jersey this week? No, it's not time yet. I'm going to wear it this week. No, it's not time yet. It's time. It's time to wear this jersey because, like you said, it is difficult to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. Tom Brady's done it against Carolina and Philadelphia. And before that, the Denver Broncos did it. It should have been Denver and Minnesota. Gary Anderson. Sorry, Vikings fans, speaking of bringing back pain. This Kansas City team has possessed, especially in the second half of the year in the playoffs, just an incredible amount of self-belief, And we saw it in the playoffs last year, but in this, where does the motivation come from, Cease? Where does the motivation come from when you're trying to win your second Super Bowl in 2 years? Well, Travis Kelce put it out there. We haven't beaten Brady and Gronk yet. Okay. And we know that. He said something like, we know what that means. We know that.
Yeah.
And think about our Steelers, Cease. Like, what did the Steelers never do?
They never beat Brady. They never ran through the Patriots because every time they did, they'd get crushed.
Yeah, somebody else would take them out.
Yeah, Denver usually.
The Jets.
Yeah.
Other teams that don't have that aura. That aren't intimidated by that aura. Kansas City, and look, it was a coin flip. It was Chris Jones getting hurt. I mean, Kansas City in Mahomes' first trip that deep in the playoffs really played them straight up in that game. But
it was D Ford lining up offsides.
Oh God. And D Ford last year, and that's the thing. See, some of the same analysis that we are putting up this year applied to last year's Super Bowl. I mean, look at what San Francisco had on the defensive line, the ability to get pressure, and so on. And Kyle Shanahan's offense was really working, but unlike Bruce Arians, we saw Kyle Shanahan tighten up when San Francisco was controlling that game.
Just like he did last time we faced New England. Kyle Shanahan tightened up.
Bruce Arians isn't going to tighten up because of Tom Brady. However, when it comes down to making the call on this game, Cease, I come back to how Tampa Bay only beat New Orleans because of all of New Orleans' unforced errors, right? I mean, if you take out the unforced errors by New Orleans offense, it was a straight up 17-13 kind of game.
Right.
Could have went either way, okay? The plays were there for Aaron Rodgers to beat Tampa in the NFC title game, even though Aaron Jones fumbles and there's a gift touchdown there. Scotty Miller gift touchdown at the end of the first half. And Green Bay still could have won, even though Rodgers was under pressure. If you just make 2 or 3 different decisions on red zone plays, Green Bay wins that game. Is Kansas City going to make unforced errors? Is Kansas City
Hardman maybe?
Maybe. Is Kansas City going to gift touchdowns to Tampa Bay?
Unlikely.
Yeah. I can't pick against Kansas City. And Le'Veon Bell's going to get his ring. Either way, Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown's going to get a ring for Steelers fans. It's like, whoa. I just can't pick against Kansas City because this team, Cease, they got the eye of the tiger, baby. I mean, they have been playing in that zone with the exception of when Mahomes got hurt, but then they recovered. And Chad Henne said, nah, we're okay. We're going to be okay, which is probably another point on the journey, right? Another point on the journey. I think this is a team that possesses, like Tom Brady. I mean, that's why it's one of the interesting storylines all the week has been like, well, is this some new debate about who's the GOAT or something? Oh, whatever. That's sports talk, like, whatever. Colin Cowherd kind of stuff.
I hate that type of sports talk, by the way. It's the greatest of all time. Oh, God.
But you start to see the effect that Patrick Mahomes has on a team, the same way that Tom Brady has that effect on a team. And let me say this before I assign a score to this game. Sometimes the big story, speaking of sports talk radio and stuff like that, sometimes the big story in March ends up being the big story the following February. What was the biggest story in the offseason? Where's Tom Brady going to play? Is he going to stay in New England? Is he going to go here? Is he going to go there? Oh, San Francisco's interested, blah, blah, blah. And what happened? The Super Bowl odds for Tampa went phew, as soon as Brady signed there. Well, sometimes the masses have it right. Sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes it's just that simple that a team with Jameis Winston that can't go to the playoffs can go to the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And let's take a moment to appreciate that. Because so many times we have all these offseason stories that amount to nothing. Well, this one amounted to an incredible matchup. I just think that Tampa's not going to go away easy, but I just don't think Kansas City is going to give them anything. And I think Kansas City as a team, because of Mahomes' aura, just has this feeling. And on the other side of the ball, it's the Honey Badger. There's just this feeling of like when the football gods say it's your moment, can you do it? Yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah, we're going to do it. It's not cockiness. It's just this sense of being as big as the moment. So I got to pick Kansas City here. I think your score is like very much in the neighborhood. I'll say 30-27. 27-24 in the first game was a good score too. 30. I think that it's going to be great. I think 56 is a really good number for them to spur action on both sides.
Yeah.
Really good number. And I can't wait. I mean, so I said this on Joe Holko's spot, like sometimes, 4,000 episodes, right? It's like, man, we spend so much time, like football takes up so much of our lives, although we're lucky we can say it's our job. What is it all for? Like, why do we pay so much attention to the free agent signings? Why do we pay so much attention to the draft? Why do we pay so much attention? Why do we watch every game? Why are we sitting there on like a Wednesday afternoon watching a terrible Baltimore-Pittsburgh game? Or whatever game it was at Washington. I don't remember all those weird games. Why can we not look away? Because there's something at the end that says this is what it was all for, or this is what it was all about, right? And I think that's one of the things that we need to respect as football fans. That, like when you saw Phillip Rivers, man, happy trails. How great would it be to play for his high school team, the team that he's going to coach?
Right.
But Phillip Rivers said, "Oh, I really thought it was our year." Well, every year I think it's our year, you know. But that's what makes football so intense. It's that these guys take these journeys together and trust each other and lay everything out. And it really is still about winning. More than money, more than glory, more than endorsement deals or things like that. It matters. And it matters because it's so hard and you have to endure and overcome so much to get to hold up that trophy. And that drive to get that trophy is what makes all the play so intense all year and makes it so we can't look away. And I just can't wait to see what the football gods have in store, the final chapter of this great novel of the NFL.
The football gods will give us a little bit of this. Oh man, come on. And then the football gods will give us a little bit of this. That's right.
Who just did that dance? Someone just did that dance. Was it Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I think it was. I think it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire who just did the Tyrone Biggums dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the 5 o'clock free crack giveaway, Mr. Joe Rogan? Yeah. All right. There we have it. That is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Post Super Bowl, well, the Audible's still here for you, of course, with all sort of draft news, all sorts of news and notes. Something breaks, we're going to be on the air. Bloom, you're taking a off-season couch tour, which I'm sure you're excited about. So we're not going away, baby.
No. And I think, and folks, if there's anything we can do to better serve you on the show, let us know.
If you have ideas or guests or whatever, throw it out there, man.
Live show will be back in March. And anybody you want to hear on the couch or topics you want us to cover, it's really great. And Cecil, I think you just did like a C-Stradamus. Clyde Edwards-Helaire scores the game-winning touchdown and does the Tyrone Biggums chance. That's it. You just predicted how the Super Bowl is resolved.
Well, then I'm going to go and put some...
Go put it one of those Clyde Edwards-Helaire anytime touchdown bets.
Well, I'll put it on the last touchdown.
Oh, you can bet on the last touchdown too?
The last touchdown will be like plus 3,300. I think somewhere around that. I could look at BetMGM right now.
It's funny, Cease, because Peter Overzet. I want to get Peter Overzet on the couch. Peter Overzet's awesome. I think last year he tweeted out that you're like peak Super Bowl whenever you have so many bets on the game that after every play you're confused because you don't know if it's good or bad for you.
That sounds about right. Well, we certainly appreciate you guys for riding along with us here on the Audible. As always, make sure to do those YouTube things like comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. We are the Audible, everyone. Enjoy the Super Bowl and stay tuned and stay frosty.